Lori here. I'm here today to do my August reading wrap up. So I did split this and I talked about the booktubeathon, all those books and that. So overall for the whole month, I did read 16 books. Some of them won't be featured in this video. They were featured in my booktube wrap up, so make sure you go check out that. I talk about Wicked King. Let me see. I talk about Wicked King. To All the Boys I Loved Before, Since You've Been Gone, Cheerleaders, and I think Hocus Pocus. So those are all the books that I talked about in that video. This video is going to focus on all the other books that I read this month, and I actually did read 17, and that does include listening. There is a very strong possibility that starting Tuesday, I will be a full-time teacher in the DOE in the city. I am not sure yet. I have to wait for them to make their final choice. I'm definitely gonna still do this channel. I just might make my videos maybe like once a week or twice a week and not 3 times a week. But I will figure that out once I post my September wrap up or TBR. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I just might have to lessen my videos to not do 3 a week and do 2 a week. So that's the only change that will be coming to this channel. Everything else is still going. And I just may be going one less day to Comic-Con, which kind of sucks, but you know what? This is my dream job and I'm really excited. If I do wind up getting this job, I will do a full announcement video and just tell you guys a little bit what I'm going to be doing and I'm super excited about. But again, I'm not sure. So, and if I wind up staying where I'm at, I'm perfectly happy with that too. This job interview came into my lap really last minute. I'm a little bit anxious about it, but I am super excited. Let's get to what I read. So the first book that I read after the booktubeathon was Love and Luck by Jenna Evans Walsh. I did read these books out of order, so I would actually recommend you read Love and Gelato before you read Love and Luck, because it's pretty much like a direct sequel. So I do recommend that you read them in that order. I didn't, and I really have to add that to my TBR in the future. But overall, I thought this book was so cute. I gave it 3.5 stars. Basically follows this girl. I think her name's Andy. It's been a while, but I can't remember her name. I think it was Andy. Maybe it wasn't Andy. But I think it started with an A. But basically she's on a trip with her brother to Ireland. They're there for their aunt's wedding, I think. And her goal is to eventually go to Italy to see her best friend, Lena, who you see in Love and Gelato, because that's where she's living. And her adventure kind of takes a turn, and she winds up going across this adventure in Ireland with her brother and this adorable tour guide who is Irish, and I fell in love with him. He was so freaking cute. I adored him. I found this book to be super well done. It was just such a fun read. It dealt with heartbreak and harder issues, also siblings relationships and sibling dynamics, and basically like what happens with what you're really good at is not what you want to do with the rest of your life. And I thought that that was such a cool concept, and I just really liked it. Found it to be so fun, and I have been killing to travel recently, and it has not happened yet, but hopefully soon. But this definitely gave me some inspiration to maybe go to Ireland one day, because it sounds like a wonderful city and country. So that was the first book that I read, Love and Luck by Jenna Evans Walsh. Most of all these books do have to do with the Summer Loving Reading Challenge, and I know some of them. Like that one was Crushes that I read about that book, and then the next one I read was Quest, and that was Royal Tour, The Potion Diaries, which I, again, really liked this book. I thought it was so solid. I gave it like 4 stars. I just thought it was such a fun read. Filed Sam on another adventure. And it was really, really fascinating. There was a bunch of mysteries or bunches of adventures that all were wrapped up into one, but overall I really liked it. The ending was so intriguing, so I'll be curious to see what happens in book 3. It is in my book outlet cart, and hopefully I'll be able to place an order soon. But this book was just so fun. I really loved it, and it was just like a perfect quest novel. I love all the characters in this book, and I just thought that the magic system and the world building was really, really well done. It reminded me a lot of the Sweetest Kind of Fate series by Crystal Cesaria. It just had a very similar feel to it, and I really love Sam as the lead character, and it was just a really, really fun read. So this was the next book that I read in the month of August. Yeah, but really, really fun. If you've not checked out this series and you're looking for a lighter fantasy, this might be the series for you. The next book that that I wound up completing reading was an early arc that I got from BEA, and that it's What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera. This was also a part of the Summer TBR and Beyond Reading Challenge, and I read this one for heartbreaking. I don't know if I would classify this book as heartbreaking, but it did have some emotional moments, so I'm going to let that category stand. Reading experience with this is captured in one of my reading vlogs. It says the two books that I think it's I've read this during Battle Books. I think it's during that readathon. But overall I really liked it. I live in New York. I've been commuting to New York City for the past 4 years. So it mentioned a lot of things. It was basically about this guy named Arthur who winds up having a misconnection with New York native Ben, and they wind up having a connection, and then it could lead to more. But you get 2 point of views. One Becky wrote, one Adam wrote. I'm pretty sure Adam wrote Ben and Becky wrote Arthur. And I just loved Arthur. He's like my favorite cinnamon roll character. I think that's the title of the vlog. I found my new favorite cinnamon roll character in him. Totally true. He is adorable. I thought that the story was awesome. It did have some predictable moments, but there's really, contemporaries can be very, very predictable, but I thought that they did it super well. I loved how they were not only super complicated. I think I was a little bit more invested in Arthur's storyline, but that's just because Arthur was like a dreamer like me and a musical guy, and he wanted to lift him off his feet. So I don't know. I think I liked Arthur a little bit more, but I did definitely like their relationship. I thought the book ended in a really interesting way, and I was intrigued. There's always a little bit of like an abrupt end to Adam's books, and that definitely happened here where you don't have all the information, but overall I really liked it, and I wind up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I wound up reading was the Fresh Ink anthology, which was edited by Lamar Giles. It has a bunch of different diverse authors, and I had to read this for a blog tour, but overall I really enjoyed it. I think there was definitely some stories I preferred more. Some of my favorites in this was Meet Cute, Why I Learned to Cook, One Voice, a story, a something in between story, Superhuman, and Paladine and Samurai. I thought that it had a great balance between contemporary stories, but also it really did address other genres. I think my favorite story was probably One Voice, and I actually really want to read that novel that these characters come from. But overall, I found it great. I found it awesome. I just thought it was like so good to give these authors a way to tell their story, and that there was other genres other than just contemporary, because I think that now that we're getting so many contemporary stories, I want to see these characters be filtered into fantasy and science fiction, and it's getting better, but I just think that those characters deserve to be in every type of book, not just contemporaries, and I thought that this anthology did a really good job. So if you've not checked out Fresh Ink, I highly recommend it. The book that I wound up reading was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This is the start of a new series, and it's a middle grade series from her. I really like this book. I gave this book 4 stars. Basically follows this girl named Cassidy, and about a year ago, she basically almost died. Something happened, she was like stuck in the water, but a ghost saved her. And because of that, she can easily cross between the veil and see this world and that world, and her best friend Jacob is a ghost. And her life's kind of going okay, and when her parents are, I guess you can kind of say that they write books about the supernatural. Her dad's very much straight-laced guy, and her mom's kind of the fancy one. So or like the one that believes in the paranormal and the supernatural. And they get a gig hosting a paranormal reality TV show, and they have to go to all these different cities, and the first city that they wind up going to is Edinburgh, which is very haunted. And I just found this book to be so cute. I loved it. I thought the pop cultural references were quite cute. I thought that there was a lot of myths about Edinburgh. You could definitely tell this book was produced by Scholastic, because there was so many Harry Potter references in this book. I loved it. It was great, and there was so many other references to like Marvel and comics, and I just really love the relationship between Cassidy and Jacob, and I love the girl that we got to meet in this, who there was a character that you met in this book that really expanded the world, and I'll be really curious to see if we see that other character again and what city they go to next. I found it to be so adorable, and it was definitely the funnest book I've read this month, and I really enjoyed it. If you've not checked out this book yet, I highly think that you would like it, and it just came out this week, so now you can go out to the stores and buy it. Book that I wound up reading was Sea Fire by Natalie C. Parker. This is a book that just came out this month, or the tail end of this month, and I actually really like this book. I've actually been reading a lot of mermaid and pirate themed book recently, and this one definitely was super fun. Basically follows this girl named Caledonia, but I think in the book people call her Cal. And she lives in this basically this regime where everyone's underneath this overlord. And she's trying to find a way to survive. And she winds up encountering a man from the previous ship, and he winds up coming abroad, and they wind up kind of teaming up together to kind of get what she wants. That's really, really a bad description. But I thought this book was super interesting. I love the focus on sisterhood. I thought that it was a really good novel in that. I thought the relationship between Cal and this young man that she found was so interesting because as a lead character, it was not the relationship I expected to happen. I really enjoyed that. But the sisterhood, the pacing in the start of the book was a little bit choppy at points, which is why I only gave this book 4 stars. But the end, it really picked up and I really enjoyed it. I thought the ending was one of those books where I was like, now I have to wait a year to get the other book. So I really liked it in that regard. The ending was definitely better than the beginning of the book, but I really liked all the characters. And I think the ending, the beginning of this book, there was a lot of characters you met. So it took me a good 200 pages to really know who everyone was. There's a very, very high body count in this book as well, but overall, I really enjoyed it, and I will definitely be checking out the sequel when it comes out next year. The only audiobook I finished listening to this month was Land of Stories, Worlds Collide. And I specifically picked this up during the Battle Books Readathon because it was super short, and I just wanted to make some progress on the books I was reading because everything else I was reading that week was super, super long. So that's why I picked this up. This is the last book in the Land of Stories series, and I've actually really enjoyed the series. I desperately want to probably re-listen to it at some point because I read the book so far apart. But overall, I really liked it. I wish I would have reread the last one before I read this one, but overall, it just was such a fun read. If you're looking for something with fun fairy tale characters that takes their story in a unique way, I highly recommend this series. I think Chris Colfer is such a fun storyteller. I'm definitely going to check out his anthology that's coming out in the fall, and I will definitely be looking out to see what he writes next because he definitely has a fan in me. I was motivated to pick up this book because of the Owl Crate back reading challenge, and that is Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston. This came out in February, but it was in the book box from March. Their book had sprayed pages, but mine is signed to me personally by Ashley Poston because she did a signing here. I don't know why it took me so long to pick up this book, but I loved it. I flew through it. It follows 3 lead characters, and they are on a space adventure. It's basically an Anastasia retelling in space, and you follow Anna, who is the lost princess. You follow Dio9, who is a android. You follow Nicholas, who is a prince, and you follow Jax, who is a fighter pilot. And it just was so fun. The chapters were so short, so I felt that it was really, really easy to fly through. I loved it. I really liked it. The end broke me into a million tiny pieces, and now I desperately need book 2, which I will be hunting for in any way I can. But overall, it was so good. I gave it 5 stars. I love this book, and I really need to catch up on my Owl Crate book, so I might actually add the next book to my TBR next month. But overall, I really, really like this book, and if you have not checked it out yet, I highly recommend it. Full of Jump interviews this week, and I wanted to continue my graphic novel trend, and I'm going to talk about the one that I read first a little bit later. But I wound up picking up Amulet by Kabu Keshishishi. I think that's not how you say it, but I can't say his name. But I wound up picking up that graphic novel. It basically follows this girl and her brother, and they wind up moving to a new town after their dad passed away with their mom, and their mom winds up getting kidnapped, and they have to go on an adventure to find her, which is really, really basic premise. But they wind up finding an old family member, and they wind up going on an adventure. It was super fun. I really loved the storytelling. So it was a good story, and I just thought the drawing was so adorable. So I was definitely going to keep reading. I don't know when, but I gave this one 3.5 stars, and I just found it to be super cute. And hopefully we'll read more comics in the future. If you have comic book recommendations that are easy for people to go into, tell me in the comments, because I haven't really been reading comics, or graphic novels, but recently I've been picking them up more and more. So if you have any comments, let me know. If you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments. in this video, but To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han was the other book for my book club, and this one we did want to we're continuing with our readathon, so we are reading Shoes and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. I definitely like this book more. There was a certain character that was introduced that just made me swoon. Now I really want King of Scars, but I have to finish reading the series and reading the one before I can even attempt to read that. But I really like this book. I thought it was great. I still think the story is a little bit predictable at points, but I'm really excited to see how the series concludes and what happens with all the characters that we have met. I like it. It's definitely not my favorite fantasy series, but I do love the world building. I think the world building is standout in this. I love all the characters, and I love the complexity that has developed in this novel, and I'm really curious to see how she ends this trilogy, which we will be reading next month, so be sure to keep a nose out. I actually read this book twice, and that's The Prince and His Dressmaker, because I read it once during the Battle Books readathon, and then I just read it the Saturday because I just wanted to like reread it and really like observe the details. But oh my god, this art style is adorable. The story is adorable. It's about a young man who winds up asking a dressmaker to make him dresses, and it's just, I know it sounds it was adorable. It just put a smile on my face. I thought the art style was adorable. The story was adorable. I think I read somewhere we're going to get a sequel eventually, so we'll definitely be checking this out. And this is what kind of started my graphic novel kick again, but overall, it was just such a fun read. And I'm looking for graphic novels like this, so if you have any recommendations, tell me in the comments. But overall, I thought this was an adorable graphic novel, and definitely one of my favorite books that I read this month. The last book that I wound up finishing reading was Fire and Ice by Sarah Beth Durst. This book does not come out until December, but it is like it's really hard to describe. It's definitely like a heist novel, but it basically follows this dragon-like culture that's set in the modern world. They can't transform into dragons, but they do have powers of dragons, and this family or this culture, they're very into heist and committing heists. But when Sky's mother goes missing, that shatters their reputation, and it's up to Sky, in what she believes, to try to figure out what happened to her mother and reclaim her family's dignity. It was such a fun novel, the perfect heist novel. This book was perfect for the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge, which is a book about a heist. Also, the Anastasia one was one about a real life person. But I love this book. I read this on my phone at both my jobs, and I just fled through. I think I read it in like a week. Oh my god, it was so good. It just put a smile on my face. I love the characters. I love the complex relationship dynamics that we handled, and I just thought it was adorable. I really, really like this book, and even though I definitely think it's a solid standalone, I would not be opposed to seeing more books set in this world, because I really like the world that was created. The book that I'm in the middle of reading, I have like about 100 pages left, is Catwoman Soul Stealer. I did get this book from my library, and I got it right after it came out. And I actually have not read Wonder Woman, but I did read Nightwalker, which is by Mary Lou. I actually really like this book so far. I will definitely do a review in my September wrap up when I get to it at the end of next month. But overall, I really like. I'm enjoying it. It's definitely not what I was expecting. I'll say that. For one thing, there's a dual point of view in this, which I did not expect. I think it's definitely expanding the DC world and not limiting it, which I really like as well. But yeah, so this is what and I will probably finish reading this tomorrow. But that's all the books that I finished reading in the month of August. Again, changes may be afoot next month, but don't worry, fearless book lovers. I will be here with the recommendations and TBRs and all that fun stuff next month. I just may have a slightly new job. But I'll be sure to keep you guys updated, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.